Okay, Derbyites. This is the big award of the evening, apparently. That's usually the last one presented. It is time to talk about what we think is going to win drama series. I am joined by my florist, Marcus Dixon, my gardener, Ralph Galvin, my chauffeur, Mr. Riley Chow, my pool boy, Rob LaCuria. How do we... That's right, baby. How so it seems like a lot of the experts think that Mad Men's going to win, but I think a lot of this people that really analyze this think it's Game of Thrones to lose. What do we think about that?
Yeah, you're right. The experts are really, really gung-ho on this Mad Men thing, and I don't quite understand it. I mean, yes, Game of Thrones is a fantasy sci-fi genre show, and those never win unless you're Lost. Lost was the only one that's ever won. But I think it's time. It's the magical fifth year for Game of Thrones, just like Breaking Bad, Sopranos, 24. Those shows all won on their fifth seasons. I think it's going to happen. Am I crazy?
Yes, but I think it's going to happen too.
So let's rephrase the question. Do you think he's crazy for thinking that?
No, I don't think so. I think he's got. I think Marcus is spot on. First of all, I don't think the experts can predict worth shit because they all told me that Gina Rodriguez would be nominated for an Emmy, and that didn't happen. So now they're just hanging on to whatever they can.
Get over it.
You need to let it go. Seriously, I'm worried about you. Okay.
But Tatiana got in there, and none of them said she would get in there, so they have zero clue what's going on. But yeah, I think with the new voting system, I think more than anything that helps them a lot. And then also with every every branch within the TV Academy being able to vote, and Game of Thrones having its biggest tally of all time in its fifth season. It's almost like that Lord of the Rings thing, when it got 12 nominations and it swept through because it was nominated all over the place and all of those branches voted for it at the Oscars. I think it's kind of like that. And I think it's the Mad Men stuff is great. There's a small, passionate fan base around there, out there for it, but I don't think everybody watched Mad Men, and if they did, they cannot, in all honesty, say that there were even 6 really good episodes this past season for it to win Best Drama Series.
That's a good point. I talked to one of the voters, and I said, "Do you think Mad Men's winning?" And she's like, "They only had 7 episodes, and they couldn't find 6 good episodes out of the 7 they produced." And that was a good point. I mean, and compare that to Game of Thrones, the final 3. I think Ralph and I were like texting back and forth, like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good! This is so good! This is gonna actually win the Emmy."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not one of those people that thought Game of Thrones had its strongest season, but I know that the general consensus is that season 5 was its strongest, or one of its strongest, and it went off with a real bang. And Hard Home was probably the best episode that it's ever produced, or in a long time at least. It just seems like it's going to happen, and I don't see any other show being able to really overtake it. Not even Mad Men. So I think it's really done. I think it's a done deal. I'm really confident about Game of Thrones.
Very Marcus of you.
I know.
This is actually one of the ones that, there's a lot of complications with a lot of these categories this year, as you just heard with our lead actor slugfest. And but this is actually one I actually feel fairly certain of. I mean, especially when the nominations came down, 24 nominations. Not even Mad Men got up to that number in its heyday. This is like back when The Sopranos and The West Wing and NYPD Blue, were on. That's how long it's been since we've seen a program get to that level of nominations. And the fact that we saw them basically doing it wherever they could, nominating both Lena Headey and Emilia Clarke. 2 nominations for directing. I really think this is pretty much, this is pretty much easy to call.
Yeah, Game of Thrones hasn't always had this much support. I mean, they missed directing a couple years. They weren't in editing last year, but this year they have 2 nominees in each. And then if you compare it to something like Mad Men, where they could have gotten a second supporting actress in with January Jones, but then the voters chose for Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey to get in. I think they've already told us that they prefer Game of Thrones in just about every category.
Yeah. And
So
even
why?
though, and the other thing is just, I mean, yeah, it is a sci-fi fantasy show, but this is a show that's actually brought that genre into the mainstream. You know, this is a show that is now, you know, it doesn't matter whether you would be classified as a nerd or a geek or normally a fan of that type of genre. You're talking about this show the next day after it airs.
Mm.
Oh, definitely. There's no water cooler show like Game of Thrones. So why are the experts so behind Mad Men? Why? Because they're really, really for it.
I think they kind of they might have this feeling of, you know, the sentimentality, and they might be figuring that in more.
Yeah.
That
It
could
means
be.
nothing though at the Emmys, right? Doesn't sentimentality just generally not wash with Emmy voters?
No,
Yeah.
of course not.
I think it's because Marcus can probably attest to this too, because he's been to them. But Mad Men did throw a lot of before and after the Emmy nominations, it threw a lot of big kind of parties and like screenings and Q&As, and everybody came out. Everybody came out to the stage and greeted everybody there that was there, and the press gets invited to all that, so they get all excited. And Game of Thrones, HBO doesn't do any of that for any of their shows after the nomination. So that could be a reason why it's just kind of in their head and they're excited about it. But yeah.
Here's another thing to think of with that is that a lot of our experts they're writers about television, right? They write about television for their various outlets. These are, remember when the Mad Men finale came? It happened. Every site you went to, there was an appreciation of Mad Men, how it changed television. I guess is that a lot of them probably wrote articles like that when the finale aired. So that could also be factoring into their thinking, and that sort of thing is still sticking with them.
Yeah. And, I think Game of Thrones is going to be such a hit this year with the Emmy voters. I think it's going to break the West Wing's record. First of all, 24 nominations is incredible. I think it can actually at least tie, which would be 9, or even beat that and get 10.
Yeah.
It's possible. Yeah. With the new voting especially, where it would lose random categories last year to Black Sails and that kind of thing, whereas this year, if it's just a popular vote, they'll take, the sound categories and all that kind of stuff easily.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Definitely.
We'll know more when the Creative Arts Emmys air, or when they're held. We'll see what actually happens.
1 week from today.
1 week from today. What will happen if neither of those two shows that we've talked about take it out? What's the most likely alternative? For me, it's House of Cards. What does everybody else think?
Some natural disaster that forced the Emmys not to happen this year.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That was good.
No, Riley's right, because look, I'm at goldderby.com. I'm looking at the combined odds that combines experts, editors, users, top 24. The shows we've talked about are tied for first place, which is kind of unusual. We have thousands of people predicting, and it's an even tie, Game of Thrones and Mad Men. And then you have to go all the way down to 50-1 odds to find the third place, and that's actually another tie. House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, and Better Call Saul are all tied. And then there's another tie for last place at 100-1 odds for Homeland and Downton Abbey. In other words, this is a two-show race. Nothing else is even in the mix.
Yeah.
I would agree that House of Cards is probably in there, only because it has support from the largest branch, which is the actors branch. We talked about it last time. It got 5 acting nominations, so that means that people watched it and they still like the show. Politics is big right now thanks to Donald Trump and everything else that's going on, so it's kind of in, it's kind of in that, I guess, realm of stuff. So it's not impossible, but I agree. I think it's one of those two shows at the top with Game of Thrones far ahead.
I think Better Call Saul could get in there. It could. I think it's wrong to discount it. This show got two acting nominations for Odenkirk and for Banks. Has a writing nomination in there as well. I think it's. I wouldn't say it's going to win, but if for some reason if Game of Thrones or Mad Men doesn't win, I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm. And Downton Abbey also is really, really popular amongst, if you're a fan of Downton Abbey, there's really nothing else that you would probably vote for. It's kind of a different
True.
different audience that likes that show.
Can you imagine if Downton Abbey won this? It would just be...
It won the SAG Award.
It would be the,
Yeah,
I
just
know.
be Game of
It would be
Thrones.
the end of the Emmys.
Well, yeah,
Like, there'd be so much
it's
criticism.
understandable that it wins the SAG Award because it's this huge cast. They're all British, and actors just eat that up. I'm looking at these nominations here. I don't see writing or directing nomination for Downton Abbey. That's not good for it. That's not good for it. Even Homeland has a directing nomination.
Yeah,
so,
but how did Homeland do this? It was surprising to me to see Homeland back in the mix. I'm still smarting that The Americans is not in this list. I just can't believe that is not in a list this long. But
get over it, Rob. Get over it.
Let it go, Rob. Let it go. Yeah, look, if Downton Abbey wins, it'll be the end of the Emmys. There'll be so many articles written about it, criticisms. I want to review the whole process.
No.
Okay, I mean, the Seattle Seahawks are still around after that disaster, so it's not completely over.
Oh man,
that's a football joke for you people out there.
I have no idea what that means. You know what? I've got to say this. Why do people think Mad Men will win this when it hasn't won an Emmy in about 300 years?
I don't think the people who are writing that it'll win know that.
They need to know, because I think the whole Mad Men thing is over.
So I will say, to your point about Homeland, if Homeland was not in this category last year, and the reaction when the nominations came out and we saw that Homeland wasn't in there was, thank God.
Thank God. It was a terrible season. Terrible season.
Third season is going to be like the subject of textbooks, of how not to write television. But this season was very well received by the fans, and the fact that it got in, and I actually watched it, and I was afraid to watch it because
me too.
That moment that you talked about, Rob, when she starts sleeping with the kid,
God.
I was just like, oh God, you got to be kidding me.
Again.
But I actually really enjoyed the season.
Yeah,
I was really into it. Yeah. So I was really down with it. So I don't think it's going to win, but I think it's a deserved place that it's there.
And your favourite group of people and Ralph's favourite, the TV critics, actually nominated it too, which is a surprise because they usually go for the hot, cool things. And Homeland is not really that cool anymore. It's good, but it's not as cool as it used to be. And so maybe it's not so surprising to see it back there. It's really good. A thumbs up for Showtime for getting it in there because there's a lot of competition.
The Good Wife couldn't even get back in there last year when it had that stellar season. So that is a real amazing feat that they were able to conquer there.
So now Orange is the New Black. Nobody's talked about that.
Let's talk about that.
Orange has that.
Is it the 4 nomination situation? That really sucks for Orange. That's a problem.
Yeah. No, and they had the season that it's nominated for, its second season, was fantastic. It was a great season. It's just those only 4 nominations. That's just and no writing or directing. I can't put it above 5th.
Yeah, Taylor Schilling's not there, and Lorraine Toussaint, who should have been there. I mean, it's just Uzo and a couple of other nominations and
Pablo Schreiber out of nowhere.
Doesn't make any sense.
I think if you were if it was the regular system where you were looking at 6 episodes, I think Orange would have a much stronger chance because, as Charlie said, I thought for in terms of a drama series, I think it was really good. The second season, it had a really great arc in there, and it was really compelling. It wasn't funny at all. But then, if as much as we complained about it here in the drama series, and it has only 4 nominations, if it was on the comedy side, and let's say it got a ton of nominations, it wouldn't have a damn shot in any of those categories because it just wasn't funny in season 2.
Well, do you think
it'd be taking up space?
If it had never switched categories, could it have won Best Comedy? Could it have beat Transparent or Veep or Modern Family, do you think? Or I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You know what? If it had come back in season 2 and had, say, like 11 nominations, I swear to you, some of us would be saying, oh, look out for Orange, it's still a threat, it's popular, Uzo is going to win again, and, I think the 4 nominations is just the death knell for Orange, unfortunately, for me. That's my opinion.
At least this year. Could come back next year.
We'll see what happens next year. It should have done much better, and the TV Academy really did that show a disservice. Everything else seemed to get where it wanted to go. Shameless, Transparent, all the shows that have kind of landed where they wanted to, except for Orange. I just felt like they were really unfairly penalised. It should have just stayed in comedy. It's not funny, but just leave it in comedy. It would have done much better.
I think of the 7 nominees, 3 are out simply because they don't have writing or directing, and that's Orange, House of Cards, and Downton. I think those 3 are tied for last place for me. So this is really between 4 shows, but really just between 2 shows.
Game of Thrones is the only one that actually has both writing and directing.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So how did
Mad Men has both? It's just Mad Men has both.
No, it missed directing for the finale.
How did Mad Men not get directing for the finale? Can someone explain that?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And that was the best thing about Mad Men the whole year, the direction of Matthew Weiner's direction of the finale, and it wasn't even nominated. I find that very hard to believe. I also find it hard to believe. Wasn't Hard Home overlooked? One of the greatest episodes of Game of Thrones ever.
Yeah.
I just find that really bizarre. And House of Cards, I know I'm in the minority. I really loved season 3. For me, it was its strongest. I know you're going to all just throw shit at me for that. Wow. I know, Ralph. But I really did love it. And it did very well with the actors, so we can't completely discount it. I mean, I'm grasping at straws. This is Game of Thrones.
I will say this about Game of Thrones is that it's very bad at winning. You know, like went to The Affair, and SAG went to Downton Abbey, Orange is the New Black. The Writers Guild split between True Detective and The Good Wife. Directors Guild went to Homeland. The Critics Awards went to The Americans and Empire. I mean, Game of Thrones actually has no track record here, but
didn't Game of Thrones win TCA a couple of years ago?
Yeah, a few years ago. Yeah.
But this
year, nothing that's actually in contention has done well with the precursors at all.
That's a very good point.
Well, HBO just doesn't have a good track record of winning a series Emmy at all in this, at the Emmys. I mean, it's got what? The Sopranos and Sex and the City.
Yeah, and this year they could win 2 this year. They could win Veep and Game of Thrones, which means the HBO after party at the Emmys is going to be the place to be.
Ralph's head will explode. It will be the place to be, and we'll see it all over your Facebook feed, no doubt. So, is that it? Is it just Game of Thrones? Because God help us, if it doesn't win and someone replays this video, we're going to look like complete morons.
Yeah, I think that's it. Let me check the forum, see if anyone has any thoughts that we have ignored here.
What does everybody want? While Marcus is doing that, what does everybody want to win? Like, in their heart of hearts, what would make them happiest? Because Game of Thrones win would be great for me. I'd love that, but I'd be happy to see Better Call Saul to win because I think that'd be a really nice, sweet story for its first season. I'd love to see Orange win. Anybody else?
I would love Better Call Saul to win just because I jokingly said that at the end of a video chat last year, and Tom gave me hell for it, and I just want to. And I just want to, just hold that over him, for years to come. But and I did like the show. But honestly, if I were picking this, my number 1 would be Orange is the New Black.
Okay.
I thought Homeland had the best season, but I kind of want Game of Thrones to win so that I can stop hearing about this anti-fantasy bias. And I think it makes
that'd be fantastic.
So over that, you're right. God.
In the forums, Bredders is saying he's going with Mad Men, and he brings up a really good point, he or she. The Sopranos and Breaking Bad won for their final season when it was split into 2, just like Mad Men is split into 2, so it could win for its final, I guess, half season you would call it.
Okay, so he's saying it's not unprecedented. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it happened twice within the past decade.
Right.
And then Joe F. says, The Sopranos and Breaking Bad were both overdue for the second win, and Mad Men has already won 4.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think they're done. I think that's even more important. The Emmy voters are done.
Yeah.
So it doesn't leave many options, and so I think Game of Thrones is just an easy win.
It was also Riley likes Homeland. That was my favorite show of the year. Game of Thrones was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Game of Thrones was the best show on television of any genre this past year. I think season 5 was incredible. And I thought if I had to pick another one, it'd be Orange. I thought Orange was really good as a drama series in the second season. And everything else was kind of Saul was just so damn boring. Like I can't sit through that show again. It's got some good episodes, but my God, the pacing.
It needs work.
It has a lot of potential, and I can't.
It has
It does. Potential, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. It's got a lot of potential.
You moron.
It's just a character study. It needs work, Charlie. Honestly, like I found it very hard to sit through as well, and I loved it.
Well, that's because you're a foreigner. Unlike us Americans,
so is Riley. He's a foreigner.
Red blood through our veins. You produce a thick, vomitous ooze that, if gotten on the eye area, needs to be washed out immediately.
I don't think so. And yet, my favorite show of the year was The Americans, and a show about America.
Yeah, but not about actual Americans, about people trying to destroy us.
That's true. Trying to destroy America. Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Okay. Well, are we? Is that it? Do we have nothing else?
We're done.
I don't think anything can top me calling you a commie bastard. So
pretty much.
Yeah. All right. So really, guys, although a lot of these categories we have no idea what to make of. This one we have a pretty good idea of. And then if we're wrong, there'll be hell to pay. And if we're right, told you so. We'll see you next time.